Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Clean Energy Project. Thank you guys all for coming to spend your lunchtime with us. We're honored to have a fantastic group of panelists to share their expertise on this ballot initiative and restructuring markets. And I want to thank our moderator, Rose McKinney-James, our speakers, Quentin Abramo, Gary Aksamit, John Hanger, Adam Kramer, and Jon Wellinghoff for their time. I'd also like to thank Switch for hosting us and for providing some lunch for you guys, and for the fantastic technology that's allowing us to stream this panel to their Innovation Center in Reno, as well as online. I also want to say thank you to CEP's great corporate partners who've helped support us and our work, including First Solar and V Energy, Valley Electric, Advanced Energy Economy, Bombard Renewables, Enel Green Power, Sempra, Fulcrum Bioenergy, McDonald Corona Wilson, UPS, Abengoa, Lewis Roca, Lynch Hopper, Salzana, and SIA. I also want to thank Senator Reid for sending Jamarian Williams to spend some time with us. Senator Reid, you know, has been a champion of clean energy, and as a show of that continued commitment to developing our clean energy technology and resources, Senator Reid has provided a brief opening statement that he wanted to share with all of you. So, Jamarian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamarian Williams, and I'm from Senator Reid's office. And before I begin, I just want to thank the organizers, the Clean Energy Project, and all the speakers being here today for today's event. Can I just give it up for everyone? So 10 years ago, the state of Nevada was at a turning point. The decision was to build new coal plants or to begin to transition to a clean energy economy. If the coal plants were built, Nevada's solar and geothermal resources wouldn't be developed for decades, at least not in a big way. So Senator Reid stopped 2 proposed coal plants and put his time and energy into developing and building the nation's clean energy economy, or Nevada's clean energy economy. With federal incentives, investment in clean energy technologies, improved permitting for renewable energy on public lands, and better planning for transmission lines, renewable energy growth has been rapid, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, cleaning our air and water, and placing our country in a leading position to address climate change. As clean energy thrived, new companies have found tremendous economic opportunities with innovative technologies that deliver clean energy to the grid and directly to consumers. From advanced battery storage to rooftop solar panels and automated systems that make homes and building more efficient, Americans have more options for participating in our clean energy economy. And because they have more options, Americans are increasingly frustrated when they are denied the opportunity to choose clean energy. Today, Nevada is facing a new crossroad in energy. As we begin to move towards a cleaner, more advanced electrical grid, states are facing an entrenched, century-old utilities business model that doesn't want to change. In Nevada, large consumers are seeking independence from the current electric utility monopoly, while families and businesses are confused why the government has effectively ended their choice to install solar on their homes. This recipe for discontentment is because people know there are opportunities in front of them, and that opportunity is being stifled by incumbents protecting their monopoly from competition. So I encourage everyone to listen to what's being discussed here, and again, I just want to thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Thanks again, Jamarian, and thanks again to Senator Reid for all of his leadership over these years in developing clean energy. It's really been a lot of his vision that's brought Nevada to where we are today. So, Clean Energy Project educates and engages Nevadans, and in particular our businesses, about key issues in energy and clean energy development and how those energy policies impact our state's economy. Some of you were at our roundtable on October 4th, where we had a great panel that discussed the critical nexus between energy and the economy and why it's so important for Nevada to get its energy policy right. And that's why today's roundtable to discuss question 3, the Energy Choice Initiative, is so critical. It continues the discussion on the nexus between our energy policy and our economic opportunities. Our goals for today are, first, to make sure that you all understand what the initiative says, that it will be on the ballot both in 2016 and if it passes in 2018, and that it provides unique opportunities as well as distinct challenges. The Energy Choice Initiative provides for a restructuring of our energy market and our energy policies. And the support that it has garnered is a sign that our current regulatory system may not be working as a proxy for the competition and innovation that we know exists in the energy field. So what would this well-regulated open market look like? There's likely a different vision of that market from everyone in this room, and after the election, it's going to be incumbent on all of us to move forward with what makes sense for the state. And so we hope today that you'll leave with a sense of how this ballot measure could ensure that clean energy development has a place in a well-regulated open market, and how a restructured market can ensure that all customers have the opportunity to access clean energy to power their homes and businesses. So to start, for those of you who have not already memorized the contents of your ballot, let me just read you some relevant portions of this important initiative. And I'm just going to kind of read through some of the paragraphs. So the initiative says it's the policy of the state that electricity markets be open and competitive so that all electricity customers are afforded meaningful choices among different providers, and that economic and regulatory burdens be minimized in order to promote competition and choices in the electric energy market. It would allow every person, business, association of persons or businesses, state agency, political subdivision, or any other entity in Nevada to have the right to choose the provider of its electric utility service, including but not limited to providers from a competitive retail electric market, or by producing electricity for themselves or in association with others, and they won't be forced to purchase electricity from just one provider. It would be implemented not later than July 1st, 2023, but the market structure could be put in place before that. And by 2023, any provisions that conflict with the statute and with this initiative would be void. One of the key things, though, that I think is paragraph 3C of the initiative, and that says in total, nothing herein shall be construed to invalidate Nevada's public policies on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and environmental protection, or limit the legislature's ability to impose such policies on participants in a competitive electricity market. And that's why it's so important that we keep having this discussion about what the policies are for Nevada and why we need to get those policies right. So this measure goes to all of you as voters in less than 3 weeks, and then if it passes again, it goes back to the ballot in 2018. But like I said, we have to ensure that we work on the right policies that will develop our clean energy resources in a traditional or restructured market, either way. This will be key to Nevada's leadership on energy and to continuing to develop our greater economic opportunities. But before our panel gets started, I'd like to hand the floor over remotely, but we are at Switch, so we can do great, cool things like remotely hand the floor over, to one of the nation's leading experts on energy and energy markets, and that's Jon Wellinghoff. Jon Wellinghoff was the longest-serving chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission from 2009 to 2013, where he was known for his international expertise and thought leadership in energy policy, electric markets, and the interface of disruptive energy systems with traditional utility structures. During this time, Jon worked to formulate new policies and rules to improve electric market efficiency and integrate new disruptive energy resources into wholesale energy markets. He now serves as Chief Policy Officer at SolarCity and oversees regulatory and legislative affairs on federal and state policy for that company. Prior to joining SolarCity, Jon served as a partner for the law firm of Stoll Reeves, where he provided knowledge and expertise in energy law and the development of clean energy technology, consulted on energy policy with leaders in the US, China, Australia, and Europe. While at Stoll Reeves, Jon represented clients in emerging energy technology fields, including energy storage, demand response, big energy data analytics, and distributed generation. So now I'd like to introduce Jon Wellinghoff. And Jon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, and I want to thank the Clean Energy Project for having me participate in their Energy Choice workshop. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great to see all my friends in the audience. Many people I can see all, I'm sure, that are very much supporters of the Clean Energy Initiative. And so I hope there's some skeptics out there. I hope there are people in the audience that are still a little skeptical, because I want to speak to them specifically. And I want to make two primary points before you move on with your panel. And you've got a great panel for this program during the noon hour. The first point I want to make is that I think Nevada does have the opportunity to be the future of energy technology and to be the future of green, clean energy resources. I talk quite a bit with colleagues around the country, and one lady I like to exchange views with is a good friend of mine, Lorraine Akiba, who is a commissioner from Hawaii. And she's always talking about she's delivering a postcard from the future, Hawaii being the future of energy and energy policy, given that they have over 17% penetration of solar energy in Hawaii now. There's been a great uptake there, given the great resource they have and the great opportunities they have in Hawaii. So Lorraine's very proud of that and likes to talk about it and brag about it. And I think we certainly can brag in Nevada as well, because in Nevada we have, as we all know, tremendous solar resources in southern Nevada and in northern Nevada as well. We also have the largest potential for geothermal resources of any state in the nation, and we have substantial wind resources as well. So some of you may know Hawaii has recently announced they're going to go to 100% renewables. Well, I think that's not an unachievable goal for Nevada either. But I don't think that goal is achievable unless Nevada does go to a true wholesale and retail competitive market with full energy choice for all consumers in Nevada. And that's what this initiative does. It enables entrepreneurs, companies like my own Solar City, and multiple other entities to come into the state and to provide the citizens in that state with the choices that they desire to provide for the energy services that they need to provide for their businesses and for their families, and to give those choices for clean energy in a low-cost, efficient way. So I think this initiative really can do that and will do that for Nevadans. Second point I'd like to make before turning it over to the panel is that we all started to do this before in Nevada. And I was there in 1999, in addition to the background that Jennifer gave you of the things that I've done in the past. A number of years ago, back in 1999, I was the staff counsel to the Nevada Public Utilities Commission. And during that 1999 legislative session, there was an effort to deregulate or restructure, I think is a much better word, restructure the entire electric system in Nevada through a legislative initiative rather than through a ballot initiative as we're doing now. And in fact, we went very far down that road. We were at the point where the utility company was having to break up and sell off their generation so that it could be competitive and provide for competitive services throughout the line of services that now are provided by the monopoly utility in Nevada. It was right then. It was the right choice then. It's the right choice now. What happened? Why didn't we go there? Well, we had a little thing come along called Enron. We had a number of actors in the Western market act in ways that were not only disruptive, but in fact fraudulent. They were making representations in the market that were ultimately causing that market to be manipulated in very significant ways. Why were they doing this? Well, they were trying to maximize their profits. Why weren't they stopped quicker? Well, because there was no cop on the beat at the time. The FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that I was chairman of for 4.5 years, at that time in 1999, had 3 to 4 people in a very small office in enforcement that was looking at the wholesale energy markets in the country. They had no enforcement authority over fraud manipulation specifically. They had to look under their general powers of the Federal Power Act. They had no significant fining authority. Their fining authority was $10,000 a day, which the Enron people and the other people engaged in those fraudulent activities were making 100 times that in a day in their fraudulent activities. It meant nothing to them. And they had really no significant oversight in the markets themselves. That has all significantly changed. Since that time, in those 17 years since the Enron debacle, FERC has created an enforcement office, partially under the time that I was chairman and actually prior to me being chairman, based upon the 2005 Energy Policy Act that gave FERC significant authority of substantial size and substantial quantity and abilities. Ultimately, there are over 200 people in the FERC enforcement office who now have attorneys, have analysts, have economists who are all capable and willing and able to provide significant enforcement activities. In addition to the people in the FERC enforcement office themselves, there's also enforcement people in each wholesale market. So in the California ISO, in the Midwest ISO, and PJM, and all these markets where these actors participate, there are now embedded in those markets market monitors who oversee those markets on a daily basis, in fact on an hourly basis, reviewing the markets to ensure that there is as little fraud and manipulation as possible. Do we have no fraud at all in those markets whatsoever? No. There still are people who, think they're the smartest guys in the room. There are still people who try to do things to manipulate those markets and take money out of consumers' pockets. But I'll tell you, FERC and that enforcement office has the ability to shut them down very quickly. We shut down Barclays. We shut down JP Morgan. They were acting in ways in the California market while I was chairman of FERC. It was not appropriate, and we fined them hundreds of millions of dollars. And as a result, we sent money back to consumers, and we basically negated the fraud that was acting in those markets at those times. So I can't tell you that, if you enter into a completely restructured market in Nevada, that the Nevada consumers will never see any fraud or manipulation that will be perpetrated on them. But I can tell you that it will be minimized to a very small degree, if any occurs whatsoever. And I can tell you that you have a federal enforcement agency that is the best in the world, bar none, that can minimize those types of fraud from occurring. So let's look at the other side of it. And I tried to do everything I could do to expand markets when I was at FERC. Why? Because number one, I knew that we had the authority to minimize fraud and ensure that the markets could operate fairly and in an open, transparent way to provide consumer benefits. And secondly, I knew from the data that we were able to gain through looking at how those markets operated, that in fact, by having those markets open, and by having those markets operate in an effective, efficient, and competitive manner, we were in fact saving consumers literally billions of dollars. In fact, I can tell you in one instance, in one market in PJM, which is the market in the Mid-Atlantic area, we looked at 1 week in the summer, and because those markets were competitive, we saved consumers over $230 million just in 1 week by ensuring that competitive providers could provide resources into those markets. So I have a great faith in markets, I have a great faith in competition, and I believe that competition will ultimately deliver those benefits to Nevada consumers if Nevada consumers choose to open it up. Thank you all, and have a good workshop.
Thank you so much again, John, for your time and for hopping on the video screen for us and for your thoughts. So with that, I'd like to get our panel going. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Rose McKinney-James. She is the former CEO of the Corporation for Solar Technology and Renewable Resources. She's a former commissioner with the Nevada Public Service Commission. She served as Nevada's first director of the Department of Business and Industry. She's currently the managing principal of Energy Works LLC and McKinney-James and Associates. Her firm provides business consulting services and advocacy in the areas of public affairs, energy policy, and economic and sustainable development. She's a registered lobbyist with the Nevada legislature and currently represents a range of public and private entities with interests in regulatory and energy policy. She's a board member for the Alliance to Save Energy, the Energy Foundation, and the second vice chair for the American Association for Blacks in Energy. She also serves on the board of 3 Square and NACD Southern California, and is a member of the International Women's Forum. And with that, Rose, I'm going to pass the panel on to you, and thank you everybody again for coming and enjoy the discussion.
Thank you. Well, I for one am delighted to be here this afternoon. I certainly appreciate all the work that the Clean Energy Project does, and as you know, they have a great reputation as conveners around really important topics. Very happy to see Jon here to help frame this discussion, but I think that you will find that you have an outstanding panel, and I'd like to invite them to join me. Jon Hanger, Adam Kramer, Quentin Abramo, and Gary Aksamit. I'm going to give each of them an opportunity to introduce themselves briefly. They all have extraordinary backgrounds, and you will see as they introduce themselves exactly what they bring to the topic. And given what Jon offered us, I think as we move forward, we have a handful of questions for you. I want to advise the audience that we do plan to have you participate and would like to have you share your questions. There are cards that have been made available to you. Rob is showing you the card. They will be collected, and we're going to try to leave about 15 minutes at the end of our panel discussion to give you an opportunity to participate. Good deal? I mean, I know you all just had lunch, so I mean, first our panelists, water. Anybody need to hydrate? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, very good. Gary, I think I really ruined your name, but we'll figure that out a little later. The first question that I would like to ask you all to consider will be one that each of you will be given an opportunity to address, but why don't we begin? Adam, can you just give us a bit of your background, please?
Thanks. So I'm Adam Kramer. I'm the Executive Vice President of Strategy for Switch. Under my umbrella are helping actually run the Innovation Center here, as well as Government Affairs and Energy. And for Switch, energy is very important to us, but most importantly, sustainable energy is the most important thing for us, and finding a way to continue to be leaders in sustainability through not just energy efficiency, which is something that our CEO, Rob Roy's patents have helped us do, but through actually using green energy to power all of our facilities with 100% renewable power. And Switch has been involved in creating the open energy market here and been a champion of question 3 since the very beginning. We truly believe the things that Jon was saying about how this will help transform the market, and as we as a state talk about what the new Nevada may look like with companies like Tesla and Faraday and Apple and Switch and others that come in, we think that having this competitive energy market is fundamental and critical to our success going forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Jon Hanger. I am from Pennsylvania, and I've had 4 public offices. Been a public advocate for customers of the Philadelphia Gas Works and Water and Sewer Department. Represented residential and small commercial customers, so about 500,000. Did that really right out of law school when I was a legal service attorney, helping low-income families and community organizations in utility disputes. Often it wasn't so much a dispute, there was no money to pay the bill. And these were not deadbeats. These were folks who just didn't have the money to pay the bill. And often the bill was far higher than it should have been. Which made a bad situation obviously even worse. I was a commissioner of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission and led the restructuring effort. I love the word restructuring. I know it's wonky, but I do not believe in quote-unquote deregulation. I believe in competitive markets and with rules and proper oversight to enforce those rules. And I thought Jon Wellinghoff did a good job sort of laying out that very important distinction. We, in fact, did restructure Pennsylvania's market and allowed full retail choice starting in 1996, and I'll be glad to provide a little more detail on that. I've also been president of a advocacy organization working on clean energy in Pennsylvania, and we were able to, in fact, bring to Pennsylvania 26 wind farms and over 250 megawatts of solar. Now, this guy sitting right here is building 180 right now, so I'm jealous of that. That was also part of my experience. I've been the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection with Governor Rendell from 2008, 2011. One of the big things then was using the money that came from the stimulus program, which was a huge boost in Pennsylvania on clean energy. We've spent that money very, very well. I want to thank Harry Reid for making sure we got a good chunk of money. And of course the shale gas revolution. So that's played a big role in power markets, wholesale and retail markets. And I've also been the Secretary of Policy for Governor Wolf. Currently, my current role is I do energy consulting, and I'm also a businessman in the medical marijuana space. That's green, and it uses a lot of energy. So look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Am I on? Yep, I just didn't have it close enough. Thank you very much. My name is Gary Aksamit. In a previous life, I was a futures trader in Kansas City and Chicago. Starting in the late 90s, I moved to Texas and got involved in the restructured electricity market. Restructured, I will agree with him. Let's not call it deregulation, it is restructuring. I got involved in the restructured market in Texas and built up some of the biggest books of business in what is commonly referred to as a multimeter space, which is bodegas, kiosks, your fast food restaurants, so on and so forth. That has manifested itself into a full-fledged, fully integrated energy business. I have about $1.2 billion right now of construction moving forward of wind farms in the Midwest, moving into the peaker space, and actively looking to acquire a trading desk and start trading power in Houston. About 4 months ago, I stepped down as CEO of my company because I came to the realization that I was the most underqualified person in my company, even though I'd created this beast, and hired a brilliant mind, a gentleman who came from Enron actually, but was not part of the fiasco in any way. And I'm now pursuing a pet project. It's called Americans for Electricity Choice, and I very much see myself and my group at Americans for Electricity Choice as being consumer advocates. And what's going on in Nevada is the tip of the spear. I don't know whether people in Nevada fully grasp this, but there are a lot of states across the United States that are watching what's going on in Nevada. There seemed to have been kind of a lull in here for about 5 or more years where nobody was talking about retail choice, nobody was talking about consumer choice of any way or shape or form in the electricity business. I can tell you Monday morning I will be in Wichita, Kansas, talking to a group of people similar to yourselves who are not happy with what's going on in Kansas. We're having these same conversations in Nebraska. These conversations are going on in Wisconsin. I've heard talk that there's groups in North Carolina as well as in Georgia. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's a wave moving forward in this idea that to go back to a comment that was previously made in the opening remarks, that I really think that the utilities have completely missed the ball. I think they beyond missed the ball, and I cannot put my finger on why. They have missed this renewable energy revolution in a great big way. I will shock everybody in this room. I'm probably one of the biggest renewable energy financiers and developers in the business, and I'm a Republican. Has that been something? But when all the fish are going one direction, I decided to go a different direction. And so we're in the policy business as an organization, American Electricity Choice, and I hope that I can bring a little bit of value added to Nevada and try to check some of those boxes that are a little further down the policy spectrum, if you will, talking about how to make sure that the consumers in Nevada all get get an opportunity to be part of a level playing field. So it's not just the big businesses that can benefit from this. I mean, I'm sure everybody's read the headlines. There's been a lot of machinations going on with some casinos that have wrote some pretty big checks. The fact of the matter is that the consumers probably can't do that necessarily. So we need to have a level playing field. And even though I think a lot of people see my political ideology as, government bad, and no. There needs to be oversight. There needs to be oversight. Somebody needs to make sure that every single consumer has a fair shot at being able to do what they think is in the best interest of their homes. If someone wants to buy 100% green renewable energy, they should be more than willing and more than capable of having that opportunity. So thank you very much.
Oh, wow. After listening to my fellow panelist and Rose, I thought I was busy. Not a chance. I'm here representing small business in Nevada. I've moved here in 2005. I started several small businesses since 2005, and the good news is I'm still here. The reality is that our business, my business, Faciliteq, by the way, my name is Quentin Abramo. My business is called Faciliteq Business Interiors. We're in downtown Las Vegas. As you can imagine, 2005 to just recently was probably some of the toughest times for small businesses in Nevada. One of the things I did do when I came to Las Vegas is I bought an old garage in downtown and created a LEED Silver building. And I share this with you as a small business owner because my business is directly related to what I call high performance interiors. When you consider the business world and in generally the consumption of energy within the United States, business is by far the largest consumer of energy. Therefore, we have to look at small business, large business, and all businesses on how to best or follow best practices to create a more efficient operating expense. As a small business, having a LEED Silver building in the beginning, I think a lot of people thought, you spend a lot of money. Why are you doing this? I can tell you after operating that facility for the last 10 years and another facility that I've been involved with, there is a lot of value in best practices when you look at clean energy and when you look at energy sustainability and when you look at managing your energy cost. After your resources, your personnel, even small business, after their human resources, the next largest expenditure is your operating expense for the facility that you are in. Therefore, having a choice and having the ability to look at different options in reference to how you deliver that energy to not only your building, but in addition, how you consume that energy is extremely important. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you, Jennifer, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, panel. Thank you very much. There are occasions where it's really sort of important to know your audience. So I'm going off script a little bit, but I just like to see who's in the audience. So Quentin's a small business person. How many small business owners do we have in the audience? How many representatives from government or regulatory agencies? How many just plain consumers? I know that we have some representatives from our large gaming industry or large users. Can I see your hands, please? And who might I have missed? Nonprofits? And then environmentalists. So you see, everyone has an interest in what happens in about 18 days with respect to this ballot initiative. So my question for each of you is, how will this ballot measure ensure that clean energy development has a place in a well-regulated open market? And how will the restructured market ensure that all customers have the opportunity to access clean energy to power their homes and businesses?
I'll start from the group that's helping to lead the campaign, I think, and then the context of how it's looked in other markets is important. we adopted a set of principles for the Yes on Question 3 that address exactly that, and we worked with environmental and consumer advocate groups to make sure that we were hitting on these points. In fact, the genesis of Question 3 was to deliver low-cost renewable energy to all Nevadans, because there's no reason that we shouldn't be utilizing the resources. John was talking about the resources we all know exist in this state, and to do it at the most affordable cost possible, and with an understanding that an open competitive market will help deliver the best cost possible. But back to the principles that we adopted, what we look to do is say, how do we move Nevada on a track to be competitive from a renewable energy standpoint, not just to make sure that we protect what's already in law under the RPS, but how we can talk about moving that forward. And not just because it's the right thing to do. And first and foremost, it is the right thing to do. But second, when we look at attracting companies and we talk about economic development, this is critical for the future of our state. All the companies that we keep identifying as the ones who we want to bring to Nevada are looking for low-cost renewable energy. The companies that are already here in the state, the gaming industry, who are global leaders and are the reason that we are on the map and we're doing the things we're doing, are looking for low-cost renewable energy. And so we wanted to make sure that that was one of our founding principles. And we also want to make sure that as we go forward, because from our perspective, obviously we want this on the ballot, and it is on the ballot. We want it to pass here on November 8th. But we also don't want to wait till 2023. We want to address it the next legislative session in 2017, because there's no better time than the present to begin making these changes. And one of our key principles also is to make sure that we're protecting those that are most vulnerable and continuing to have consumer protections in place. And I see the Bureau of Consumer Protections is here today, so should be music to your ears. We really believe in what you do is the right thing in protecting all ratepayers in Nevada and making sure that those protections are in place. And these are the adopted principles. And they're not just us saying that. It is who we are. It's what we believe in. That was the founding ethos of Question 3. And so to be able to work with partners and bring more and more people to the table so that they have a voice as we begin to talk about the restructuring and the creation of a well-regulated open market, that we do this in a way that is cognizant of the importance of renewables as well as the protection of all ratepayers here in Nevada.
John, given your experience, particularly with ratepayers at various levels, it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective on this question in terms of how it could impact the vast range of customers who will be impacted.
Yeah, well, I think it's a huge opportunity for clean energy, but it's also an opportunity for customers. And there's a slight difference between the two. I'm a customer, and actually I use my power of choice in Pennsylvania and have for a long time, as soon as I could, to buy 100% renewable energy. And I buy 100% renewable energy from wind farms built in Pennsylvania. I don't buy Texas REC credits because I want my dollars to support construction of wind farms in my state, in my airshed. Obviously, carbon avoided anywhere helps to deal with climate change, but less mercury in Pennsylvania is something I care about. Less soot in Pennsylvania is something I care about. Less sulfur, nitrogen, and smog in Pennsylvania is something I care about. So I want my electric dollars supporting clean facilities, clean generation facilities in Pennsylvania. So the power of choice does help a consumer allow his or her preferences be expressed with their dollars. I don't want to support a coal plant. I live in the 3 Mile Island nuclear evacuation area. I don't want to support nuclear power. I want to support renewables, and I get to do that with the power of choice. Obviously, the power of choice has been used by some very large retailers, big box stores and others. The tech sector is another example. So choice can, in fact, bring revenues to the table that will bring forth more renewables than if you don't have choice. That's one big advantage. I would say there's 2 or 3 things that are very important, both for clean energy and for consumers. One has already been emphasized, but one more time, you've got to have a real-time market monitor of the wholesale market. That's the cop on the beat. And as I think the changes that were made at FERC that Jon Wellinghoff talked about are real and important. But you need the local cop on the beat. God bless Washington, D.C. I'm not one of these people who bash the federal government. Very, very important. That's probably a dangerous thing to say in Nevada. There I've said it. But you need the local cop on the beat. So that wholesale market that Nevada would be part of, you better have a market monitor in place to protect consumers as that goes forward. The other thing that is a big opportunity for consumers and clean energy is on the demand side of these markets. The cleanest energy source is energy efficiency. It's the negawatt. And if you empower consumers with smart metering and other technology, smart thermostats to control their demand, that will help their pocketbook, and it will also help the air quality and the environment. That's a huge win-win opportunity. And if you want a really strong way to guard against market power, empower consumers on the demand side of the market, so that if prices go up too high, they have ability to move to lower priced hours of the day. As just one example. There's plenty of things that consumers can do if they have the technology in the home or business to protect themselves from high prices. And let's have one last statement. High prices actually do serve a purpose. They are signals to consumers, and they're signals to investors. Not all high prices are market manipulated prices. And you have to have a willingness to accept those signals while empowering consumers to manage them either through long-term contracts. I have a 2-year wind contract, and my price is fixed for 2 years. Or through these demand-side technology instruments that allows consumers to control their power and the ultimate bill they pay.
It's a very impressive panel, and I'm speaking not like I'm impressive at all, but everything he said there is so very, very important that you have to have the cop on the beat, and you have to have the cop on the beat making sure that no one's ever gaming the system. So the reason why I think I was asked to be a participant in this panel is to talk a little bit about what the markets look like after restructuring. And I want to use Texas as an example because that's a marketplace that has worked very, very well. They've had their fair share of hiccups. I'm not going to lie. There was a period in time in there about 6-8 years ago when no one was building new generation because the markets weren't signaling to build new generation. In fact, there was an overabundance of electricity in the grid, and there was no driving force for building new generation, but the grid operator was looking at a whole bunch of retirements of generation coming up, and there was a panic. There was a lot of worry, but it all worked itself out because markets do what markets do. Investors like myself found the signals that we were looking for, and everything worked out fine. Let me delve into a little bit to tell you what the world looks like post restructuring. If everybody's got their pen and paper handy, I want you to write down texaspowertochoose.org. TexasPowerToChoose.org is a clearinghouse or a database, if you will, of all of the retail competitive power providers in the state of Texas that are competing for people's rate dollars. And when you go to that website, on the front page of that website, they're going to ask for a zip code and type in 75094, which is a Texas zip code that will get you into that website. And what you're going to find out is you're going to find probably 150 to 250 offers. Everything from 100% renewable to whatever you want, 2-year contract, 3-year contracts. That's what choice looks like. You've got dozens and dozens of companies that are pushing for your ratepayer dollar. Now, the interesting thing about it is electricity is a commodity. So at the end of the day, if you've got that many people competing for your business and they're all playing in the same commodity field, there's not a lot to differentiate them. So the next thing that they've gone to is that they're offering add-ons. For example, he brought up the issue of smart meters. Getting a smart meter in Texas is about as easy as getting a speeding ticket. I mean, you switch electricity providers and they'll send you one whether you want one or not. This is innovation. When people talk about retail choice, they fixate on the idea of saving some money. And that is such a very, very small part of the equation that it's really almost laughable because you give the consumer the power to choose. They may not necessarily pick the cheapest solution. They may actually pick something that's near and dear to their heart or something that's beneficial to their business or their household individually. Now, the next thing that you'll find when you look into the Texas marketplace is you find something called free nights and weekends. And when I bring this one up, this one always opens everybody's eyes. And let me explain to you how free nights and weekends happen. Free nights and weekends happened about 8 years ago or so when the market started to collapse and there was an overabundance of electricity on the grid. What people don't know from the perspective of a trader, this is common marketplace for me, but people in the audience won't know this. Electricity trades just like any other commodity does. However, when it gets down to zero, and if there is such an unbelievable abundance in the market, the price of electricity will actually go negative, where the generators are beholden to the buyers to pay them to take the electricity. Now, that sounds rather simplistic, and it's much more complex than that, but that really is what happens. So what ends up happening is you end up with free nights and weekends, because the generators and the retail power providers decided that it made better sense to give electricity to the consumers in the off-peak hours than it was to wear the market risk. So in Texas, we have products where you can lock in your daytime electricity rate at a fixed price, and from 5 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning, your electricity is free. It's free from 5 o'clock at night, I believe it's 5 o'clock, could be 6, don't hold me to that, on Friday night until 8 o'clock on Monday morning, your electricity is free. This is innovation, okay? Now, what did Texas get out of that? We have 17,000 megawatts of wind online in Texas. You don't ever hear any Texas politicians talking about the Clean Air Act, because Texas doesn't have an EPA problem when it comes to their coal fleet, unless there's something I don't know about that I haven't heard of. So what that tells me is the consumer's smart enough to pick what's in their own best interest. Now, to explain to you personally, everybody has a driving force behind why they get out of bed in the morning, why they're passionate about something. For me, the reason why I'm passionate about renewable energy, the reason why I'm so passionate about wind in particular, and why I like building big wind farms, even though I think the days of building big wind farms is probably going to come to an end. The best sites have been locked up and the world's moving on. But here's the thing you have to remember. Wind is the only form of commercially scalable electricity that doesn't consume any electricity, or does not consume any water. Now that may not sound like much, but for somebody that comes from central Nebraska in a fully over-appropriated NRD district that's in a lawsuit with Kansas every time the sun comes up, it's a big deal. And for me, I was left scratching my head why some of the most wind-rich states in the country were some of the states that had the absolute least amount of wind online. And it's very simple. You had utilities that, for whatever reasons, and I think we probably all have a pretty good idea what it was, didn't seem to want to embrace that. Now they're in a problem. They're in a serious problem, because I can tell you the wind resources that we're bringing online today are coming online at under 2 cents a kilowatt hour. That's almost impossible to beat in this marketplace. So I hope that when this is all said and done, I can sit up here and just rattle on for hours about all the different things and market mechanisms and all the things that we do as a business. Afterwards, if people want to come up and we want to talk shop, that's perfectly fine. But I hope I can give you guys about a 35,000-foot view of what the world looks like if you do have retail choice. Thank you.
I see a few millennials out there, and I actually have 2 of my own. But I have a lot of confidence in millennials. The reason I do is because small business is going to be driven by the millennials. Technology is a big piece of that. And as my fellow panelists have said, the ability to use technology to minimize consumption is part of the story that I tell in my business. For all of you small businesses, you know technology is going to change probably every 6 to 12 months, and your businesses will probably change every 6 to 12 months, or you're going to have to adapt every 6 to 12 months. It's important that you look at the ability to manage your cost. And managing your cost and being able to identify what those costs are is critical to the success of your business. I'm in the interiors business. I see big business and I see small business, and it's changing at a rate. I've been doing this for 25 years. It's changing at a rate that I'm having a hard time keeping up with. And what I mean by that I believe by the year 2020, 62% of the workforce will be under the age of 35. They consume power, and they use technology a lot differently than baby boomers do. So I encourage you, as small businesses, to read up on all the available choices. I encourage you to look at your operating expenses as an overhead that doesn't always have to go up. I think the point was made when you look at how you operate your business, you can lessen the consumption. And if you lessen the consumption, you're not beholden to the price increases because you have that ability to control that. So everything that's been shared up from the panelists today relates to not only, in my opinion, big business, but also small business. Some of the big concerns of small business is how do I afford this technology? Well, the reality is that technology is getting cheaper and cheaper every day. And if you educate yourself and you have the ability to look and see what's available out there, you can have those controls in place. So I recommend that all businesses, but definitely small businesses, consider the same opportunities as big businesses. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, now we're going to rapid fire. We have to go to rapid fire. Rapid fire. I need to know a couple of things. Adam, I'm going to ask you why it is critical for us to look at the 2017 legislature as potentially a path to move this process forward. There's a lot of discussion about that, and so if you can quickly share your perspective on that. Then, John, I'm going to tee you up because I think it's important to, you have to know where you've been in order to know where you're going. Jon Wellinghoff mentioned the fact that we've been talking about restructuring and deregulation since the 1990s. What has changed? And therefore, why is this embraceable? And then we'll go from there.
Simply enough as to why we have to do it in 2017 is what you just talked about, technology. And technology changing every 6 to 12 months. We can look at that gigafactory that all Nevadans have invested into that's going to be turning out batteries that are going to change the way we do energy storage, and the cost of energy storage is going to drop precipitously. The same way the cost of solar panels has dropped precipitously over the last few years. And we have to make sure that we can begin to integrate that technology as it's coming out. Because if we get stuck into an old system, we are not going to be able to integrate that technology. And if we don't address this till 2023, then that means that we are going to be 5-6 years behind where we should be on actually making these changes. And it means that we're going to have to undo that much more of the old way in order to adapt the technology that is going to change the future of Nevada in the most positive ways.
John?
So look, in Pennsylvania, we've now had 20 years of experience. This is the 20th year since the passage of our state act in 1996. And we had in 1996, 2 electric utilities in our 2 most populous areas. We have 13 million Pennsylvanians in the 2 most populous areas, the Pittsburgh region and the Philadelphia region. Those 2 electric utilities had residential rates that were amongst the 10 highest in the country. We had rates in some other parts of the state that were more reasonable, but on average they were 15% above. Today, electric rates in our formerly most expensive areas are 40% lower than in real terms than they were in 1996. They've gone down a very big amount in real terms. There are dollars to be saved by our calculation in Pennsylvania, just in the residential sector. There's been about $818 million a year worth of saving for residential customers across the Commonwealth. Small business customers have actually been the biggest savers because they would be getting the shortest end of the stick under the old regulatory model. They were paying the highest rates, and they've done even better. So there's been dollars saved, but also there is significant now innovation coming through. To pick up on your point and both of your points, it is not simply about price. And with the point about storage that you've just made, there's going to be choice whether you plan for it or not. It's better to plan for it. So I think now 2016 going into 2017 is the time to do this in a planned, proper way that brings all Nevadans along and doesn't throw any Nevadans to the curb.
Can I tackle that?
You can, because I have a follow-up for you, so
Okay.
go ahead.
Now, to drill this into the pure economics of it, there's something called the production tax credit, and it is expiring. It is ticking away day by day by day. And I have access to PTC qualified turbines. That means production tax credit turbines, meaning turbines that will allow me to kick that PTC into gear at commercial operation date. Let me touch on the PTC for a second. I've gotten into some near-death bar fights with some of my Republican buddies over this PTC conversation. It is a production tax credit. It is an investment tax credit, okay? I don't get that until I've spent at least $100 million on a small wind project, or as in the case of what we're doing, a bunch of money. And the fact of the matter is that is going against you, because I'm not saying that Nevada is all about wind. It needs to be everything. But if you want to have significant wind come online, and if you want the consumers to be able to capture that, wow, you are chasing a mouse down a hole right now, and you got to move fast. I don't think you've got till 2023 if you really want to do this and you want to make it to be about renewable energy.
So following up, you know, you referenced, Adam, the principles that the Energy Choice Initiative has developed. I know there was a collaborative effort, but there are a series of competing principles that our investor-owned utility, Nevada Energy, has offered. It seems to me that there is a need to have a conversation around policy. So I need to understand, and Gary, you've had experience in a variety of jurisdictions, what policy should we be considering in order to address those concerns? Everything from stranded cost to a question that I have from the audience, which is how we ensure that low-income residents aren't stuck in high-cost energy markets. Go.
That's for me? Well, the high-cost energy market scenario, I go back to the Texas Power to Choose website. I mean, it is available to anybody who wants to click on there. Oh boy, policy issues, policy questions.
Okay, rapid fire.
You
can defer, because John has his
I
microphone
wanted.
up.
I was trying to think on my feet.
Okay.
The stranded cost issue is something that is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and I think that conversation needed to start like about 6 months ago. I don't know how you're going to address that, because the incumbent utility obviously has stranded costs, and you cannot throw them under the bus. So that is probably the biggest thing that you've got to touch right now. The other thing that you've got to get into is you've got to get into the consumer protection aspects of this. And you know, I get a lot of links, emails from people here in Nevada talking about the polling. The polling's great, but you got to move on from the polling. Now you got to start education, and you've got to start education in a great big way, because I've met with some business leaders this morning that know quite a bit, but I guarantee you the employees that work for those business leaders have no idea why the businesses did the things that they've done. And that's the next step. You've got to hit the ground running on education really, really fast.
So on low income, there's a whole range of things that should be done. This is just to be absolutely upfront. This is my own quote unquote morality. I think electricity is a necessity of life, and I don't think any human being should be without a necessity of life. That's both the things are arguable. But that's where I'm coming from. So in Pennsylvania, what we did at the time that we restructured and ended the generation monopoly and gave everybody choice, we also increased something called our universal service programs, our customer assistance programs. These are programs provided by the distribution utility and paid for by all customers. We increased them very dramatically. We increased the budgets by fourfold, which was a huge increase. We also increased our low-income usage reduction program, an energy conservation program targeted to low-income families. Those very important protections that we did. The third thing that you can look at is bulk purchasing for low-income families and having fixed-price contracts, perhaps long-term contracts, aggregation pools. And there's any number of things that can be done and should be done for low-income families. And by the way, many of those things, like the aggregation pools, are tools for all consumers, regardless of income or classification. It's a great idea for small business customers, as one example.
So I just want to recap one point. So real quick, so you were able to quadruple the amount of money to help for the universal service programs, able to lower the cost of power so it's less today than it was in 1996, save almost 40% less today than it was in 1996, save residents almost $1 billion a year, and you did that all while opening up an energy market.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make that point.
Okay. I have another question from the audience, and that is that there have been some concerns expressed by those who are interested in job creation, some from organized labor and from others. The question then is, how will this measure help create more jobs? Will it be additive? And I'll let anyone tackle.
I personally think it will be additive. You absolutely have an opportunity, for example, to have for a much better range of services in homes. That's new jobs. You have an opportunity to have new investment going into generation, on-site generation, as well as more traditional generation feeding into the grid. That's jobs. And of course, if you have a market that is performing better over a period of time, you're going to be making Nevada more competitive. And that will, in fact, help businesses here in Nevada employ people ultimately.
Caterpillar moved back to Texas. Texas is one of the cheapest cost electricity states in the country. If you want to move to Texas and open a business in Texas, you want 100% green renewable energy, I guarantee you there'll be at least a half a dozen energy brokers knocking down your door the minute you open up for business. The jobs. Well, I'm just telling you, the market comes. The market comes.
But let me add to that too. Nevada has the lowest amount of electrical worker jobs per capita of any state in the western U.S. So we have one way to go, up.
Any small business that can manage their operating expenses better can hire more people and pay more people or pay higher wages. So I definitely believe that choice is going to provide a lot of opportunity. And again, going back to technology, technology is going to drive even more opportunity for Nevadans.
So the takeaway is, because we've come to the end of our time, that this is not an easy undertaking. There are a whole host of steps that are required, but it has been done. It has been done well. Markets are important. Markets send signals. We have to hear the markets. Innovation, technology will be a huge aspect of this. I think emphasize the fact that we are dealing in a very sort of fast-moving market. That the key word here is opportunity, and Nevada has the opportunity to seize it. I hope that you found the panel as productive and provocative as I did, and I'd ask you to help join me in thanking them for their participation.
Great job.
And thank you, Clean Energy Project.